My name is Jim Nolan. I'm a playwright and a theatre director, and for almost as long as I can remember, I've been making plays for, in and about my native place of Waterford. I love my city and county, and I love the South East region. I love it because it's a beautiful, exciting and inspiring place to work and live. But mostly I love it for its people. People are my raw material, and this is my three sisters' story. We moved out here I was a year old, believe it or not, in the summer of 1959. And we lived in Ardnagrania inside in Waterford. And for reasons best known to themselves, my parents moved out here and to the German Road in Johns Park. It was an extraordinary place to grow up, and particularly for this reason. Just across the road from where we lived were 18 houses which were built in the early 50s. For the cutters, the blowers and the engravers who'd come across from Europe. It was just after the war and the two Czech-men, Charles Batchik and Mirek Havel, set up the new Waterford crystal factory just across the way in Kilcone. And they built these houses across the way, not just for the Germans, but for Italians, for Czechs, Poles, Austrians. There were people from every country in Europe lived on this street. They were master craftsmen, and they'd come over to teach the new apprentices at the Waterford glass factory. I suppose the most exciting thing about it was we lived in sort of a black and white culture, do you know what I mean? It was monochrome, there was very little going on. And all of a sudden, as you were becoming 4, 5 or 6 years old, you were hearing people being called for their tea in 6 different languages. It was absolutely fantastic. As a young man, I think why it was such a formative experience for me was that it taught me, I suppose, about other cultures at a time when there wasn't much of that to see or to experience. I remember a line that I wrote in a play once on an entirely different subject. A man's heart has more secret corners than there are stars in the sky. And I often wonder where that line came from. And I remember as a kid looking at these men, knowing that they had come from war-torn Europe and wondering about the stories that they couldn't tell. And it gave me, I suppose, as a young man beginning to write, and I wrote my first plays in the backyard here, a sense of, not just of other cultures, but of the other side of a story. About 10 years ago, I made a radio documentary for WLR with Liz Reddy, and it was called The Glass. And it was a series of 6 one-hour programs. It was a sort of an insistence that, not just that their story should be told, but that it be a celebration of what the men and women, not just the lads who lived on this road, but the many thousands of Waterford people, men and women who had given so much to Waterford Crystal, also who had such extraordinary art in their hands as blowers, cutters and engravers. It's extraordinary to watch. And I wanted to celebrate that story. There was a sense in which that time might pass and that Waterford Crystal might pass. But there's such a rich tradition here, and for me that tradition is as valid and as worthy of a place at the table of culture as the so-called convention. I'm passionate about Waterford and the South East region, and I believe it's our time to stand together and show our desire to be the European capital of culture for 2020. So come on, join me and do your bit for the bid. Tell your story on 3sisters2020.ie. Our bid, our voice, our region.